Good evening. My name is Joe Sam Robinson. It's my pleasure to have us with us tonight, Mr. Harry Gross. Welcome, Harry. He's been a frequent visitor at our little show here. That's good. And I must say we're forcing the mantle of the Democratic Party on Harry. I don't know how much we're forcing it on him, but nevertheless, he often takes that viewpoint. And we've had conversations in the past, often rather critical of our president. I guess we could say that, not always, but in that direction. And so searching for something that he would, at least in many quarters, have some credit for this policy, we might think about the border situation. So we'll say, I'll now present, I think the contemporary ideas on the subject is, okay, the borders are open, they're porous. They were opened by the Democratic Party, but it's the allegation. And so millions and millions of people flooded into the country in every direction. And they may well be doing some very good things for the country, but the idea is, well, even if they are, we'd like to just decide who comes in the country. And it's been a long time since that's happened, I think, that you could say, well, these are immigration policies, and this is what happens. This is how you get to come in the country. We need more farm workers. Maybe we need more football players. Maybe we need, more neurosurgeons. Whatever we need, we'll decide who gets in. And that's certainly not been the case. Well, I think President Trump has been in office for, well, how long? 6 months, some figure like that. And apparently the reported figures are, well, he actually closed the border, and he closed it by just instituting a vigorous enforcement policy. Now, should he, if those are the facts, should he get credit for that? Or is there something that's amiss with these policies? So I'll give you the football, Harry.
Well, I'm deeply skeptical of the idea that the border is totally closed and secured. That there's going to be some level of weakness in the system. There are always going to be ways where coyotes are going to be able to get people across the border, smuggle them in. It's an industry now. And I don't think...
You think it's been reduced any?
I'm sure it's been reduced. Oh, it's definitely been reduced.
Substantially. I have to think... we could discuss how it's good or bad or whatever, these particular policies, but it would appear that certainly something has happened. Now, I'll ask this question. Are the policies in place, do they comport with the Constitution? In other words, are people that say, I'm not going to discuss the people that maybe have been tossed out after they're in the country or whatever, but what about just being stopped at the border by a fence or armed helicopters? Is anything amiss with that policy? You just can't cross the border without permission.
To the best of my knowledge, no. There's nothing unconstitutional about that. I would, however, say that it's the antithesis of the American ideal.
So, you think the American ideal is we have a porous border?
No, I think the American ideal is that this is a place where anyone can come and work hard and do better than they had in their previous life.
Legally. But what about illegally?
There was no such thing as legal immigration until the 1930s, really. Everyone was illegal until that point. There was no real system for regulating who came in and came out. You had places like Ellis Island where you had registries.
Well, didn't you have to have a passport?
Not necessarily.
I think pretty much passports were required, or a lot. And as a matter of fact, it would be very, very unusual for a person to have passports for two countries. So I think it was pretty much a route. Maybe you didn't have one, but it was certainly customary, I believe.
It became customary in the 20th century. But for most of America's history...
Certainly by World War I think that was the case.
Around that time, yes. But by that point, we'd already had several major waves of immigration. And largely, the first waves of immigrants that came to this country came just not necessarily on a whim, but without any real oversight. The closest thing we had to immigration control was public health, was quarantining ships to make sure that
didn't people have
no
to
one
have
brought stuff
somebody
in.
to finances? They were coming across how are you going to support yourself? Is your brother-in-law here? I mean, I think
Not always, no.
not always, but a lot of times. I mean, many times, and I can't say the percentage of whatever, but I think the case is that I'd say this is the case. Long and far ago, I don't think there were any particular immigration policies. Let's say in 1650, maybe not in 1650. I mean, the doors are open, and then gradually there was restraints imposed. And I think pretty much in the 21st century, people say, well, I think restraints are needed, particularly the 8 billion people on the planet. So many people live in essentially garbage cans, if you wanted to say that. Not everyone, but many people are really bereft in their life expectations, and they'd certainly love to come here. Millions of people would come. And so President Trump, just to say, I'm getting back to the point here, is there must be something that you could find in his policies that, well, that sounds okay to me. So what I'm presenting is the idea that he has closed the border, and the argument against that apparently is, well, it didn't used to be closed at all. But I mean, so
well, I wouldn't say that that's the argument against that. I would say that, one, I think it's a false claim that he's closed the border. 50% of undocumented immigrants came here legally in the first place anyway, and merely overstayed their visas.
Well, okay, let's get it.
The largest issue of undocumented immigration is not necessarily closing a border. It's making sure that you have a system in place that can adequately process.
So we're going.
The millions of people coming to this country every year.
That wasn't good enough. Closing the border, or I'll assert that most observers think the immigration across the U.S.-Mexican border has diminished. Since probably that's a fair statement.
And I would agree with that.
All right. So that apparently wasn't enough. That he should have put a totally new immigration system in place.
Well, I would say he needs to better support our current immigration system. Our current immigration system is vastly underfunded, vastly undersupported. The immigration court system is one of the most overburdened judicial systems in the country.
So there's some problems that still, we can get into that. All right, well, you mentioned the idea about visas. I think to me, that would be illegal immigration if you overstay your visa. And I believe that is incredibly an issue. So many people come in with visas and they just disappear into the population. And I mean, I've observed that with overseas visitors, scientists or physicians. They come and they have a visa and they disappear into the country. And that's a substantial issue. And I think the visa requirements are being tightened around the world. I mean, so at least some things are happening. So just to stay on the subject, I think I believe that President Trump could receive some credit for this, for better or worse. And maybe it's a mistake. It could be a mistake to close the border or do this. All kinds of bad things happen. Well, the wonderful view of people have around the world of the U.S. a great place. Well, no, we don't think that anymore. I mean, there's some negative things. Look how mean you are to people trying to immigrate. Okay, click. And you get into a whole nother subject about removing the millions of people that are here, the millions. And that might be a subject to segue into. All right, we have, I don't know how well you accepted the idea that Trump had done something okay on the border, but all right, we'll move past that. And most people, I don't think, of Democratic persuasion go too far on that. They say, Trump did that. I don't want to talk about it. So the normal, which I think is something to remember. So when you talk about this or that, some people do things good and bad all the time. And so there might be some kind of good, whether it's good, or at least people think it's good, policies that are out there. And maybe, okay, well, that means that I'm trying to assess the situation in a broad-minded way. I'll just throw that out. And then we could go to something that along those lines there's plenty of anger about or assault about, and that's sending people out of the country. Now we'll ask this question. Since you said that, he didn't really close the border. Okay, click. So is it true he's not really sending people out of the country? He's not really doing that.
Oh, absolutely he is. He is illegally deporting people
I
who
know,
should
but
be here.
I thought the
legally.
comparison, comparing things. So let's say in the Biden administration, I've heard it said that actually he sent more people out of the country than Trump has.
Yes.
Is that true?
And Obama deported more people than any other
that's
president in
correct.
American history.
Is that true?
I'm not sure if that's true. 'Cause I don't have the statistics in front of me. But
should we say, okay, we're going to give him a pass on that because the Democratic administrations apparently did more?
No. The difference is how you deport people and who you're deporting.
Yes.
The Biden administration and the Obama administration and the Bush administration before that and many previous administrations deported people without violating their constitutional rights in this country.
How could they send so many people out? I mean, in other words,
by effective border patrol. We have not had a porous border as if we've just flung open the gates and there's nobody watching. We have had a vigorously defended border.
Just to go on that thought, is the reason that they, I guess, sent so many people out of the country more than did Trump, is that people more or less felt psychologically entitled to come here. So the idea is out if you're in Honduras or you're in Guatemala, and everybody has moved up, and when you cross the Rio Grande, they're here in the country, and they also have colonies of different ethnic groups in different cities. So once you get in, you can stay, and et cetera. And the word on the street is out there, and that the number of people that tried to cross the border in the Trump administration, are those less? And that's the reason he's sending less back?
That's partly now, that because there has been such a vigorous anti-immigrant effort in this country in the last 6-7 months, the number of people who want to come here has decreased dramatically. That's part of it.
Well, that want to take the risk, I guess. Now, is this what's going on? Just to ask the question. What kind of policy? It certainly seems unseemly, I would say, if we're going to put people in alligator, what do they call it? Alligator
Alcatraz.
Or whatever. I mean, all these things. Or we have a way to send people to El Salvador in very terrible conditions. So the word is out there, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And so there's a publicity campaign that's out in the immigrant world. This is going to, if you're caught, you better not come here. And now, is that, what about that policy? Is that a bad policy? It's sort of like just asking this question, maybe splitting it into two parts. There's actually the people that do wind up in the Alcatraz. How many? Maybe not too many. And the other thing is just the publicity that it received. So presumably it's for many reasons. I mean, so we're going to just do something terrible to you. This is not your father's, Buick. So you come to the States, it's a totally different deal now. They're going to put you in a lockup. It's going to be unpleasant. The food will be terrible. There'll be snakes slithering around. I mean, it's just terrible, and that's the publicity that's been put out, and that's discouraging immigration. And so meaning that relatively few people get into these horrific situations. What kind of policy is that? Is that a good policy? What's the alternative, et cetera?
I mean, I would argue that the current effect of this policy is terrorism. It is essentially terrorism. It is hurting a few people to send a message to a larger audience. It's textbook acts of terror to discourage immigration.
I mean, but isn't that military discipline? In other words, that's normal, isn't it? So you desert, they shoot you. I mean, so they're really heinous acts to say we're going to really do something bad because it's so important that we have this particular policy. Isn't that normal? It's not. Normal is the wrong word, but it's certainly been observed in many circumstances.
Just because it's normal doesn't mean it's right.
Well, I mean, you could also make the case that many things that are right or wrong are difficult to dissect. So if you say this is wrong, but that's the converse of that. It's very difficult to say what is right and wrong.
It's not this difficult to say what's right or wrong. It is very clearly wrong to illegally detain people in concentration and internment camps.
You put the word
it is very clearly wrong to violate their constitutional rights to due process It is very clearly wrong to deny them representation. It is very clearly wrong to purposefully target certain ethnic and racial groups for particular immigration issues. And it's very clearly wrong in the sense that it is antithetical to the American ethos of send me your tired, your huddled masses.
Well, is that in the Constitution?
No, it's not in the Constitution.
Who put it there? Who put that there?
That's not in the Constitution.
No, of course it's not.
It's inscribed on the base of the Statue of Liberty.
I know, it was put there by the French.
No, it was not. It was put there by Emma Lazarus. It was put there by the American government.
They put that on the.
Yes.
Well, maybe I'm misinformed. Then they did.
The French gave us the statue.
I know,
but the
but who was
American
Emma
government.
Lazarus?
She was an American poet.
Really, a indigenous American person.
What is an American? What is an indigenous American in the 1800s?
Well, I would say someone that was born here.
I would say it's a Comanche. It's an Apache.
Well, that's there too. I mean, they're both born there. So that's a whole group of people was born there. But presumably, just to say this, I mean, it's I want to
reapproach the fact you use the phrase a entitlement to come to this country. People who are coming to the United States come to this country because they see this place as an incredible beacon of light and prosperity. It is the greatest endorsement of the American system. And if they have a psychological entitlement, then so did all of our ancestors who voluntarily struggled to sacrifice. Your ancestors, that you talk about so frequently, sold themselves into indentured servitude because they wanted to come to this place to make a better life for themselves.
Well, people take options. They do, and they do it legally often. And so you could say, well, are you doing something illegal or whatever? And if you look at, I mean, we're parsing out right and wrong. And the words that you chose, you could say, well, let's joust each of those words are debatable as to how you phrase them or what the story is. So and this is a common thing, I would say. So I'm just going to put some words out there that are, I guess, loaded words that say, well, you would never violate the Constitution, right? Whatever the Constitution has, and it's often debatable. There are all kinds of conflicts, whatever. So it's a very usual situation to have people say, well, you violated the Constitution or not, and it depends on what part you're addressing, because there are all kinds of checks and balances in the Constitution, whatever, and the Constitution is still being formed. So there were times when, before our present situation, that it meant something quite different. Additionally, there are all kinds of state constitutions. There are all kinds of things out there, and how the courts interpret this turns out to be a big deal. So you could say in Macon, Georgia, we had segregated schools in 1953, maybe 1955. So that did not violate the Constitution.
Actually, it was violating the Constitution by 1955, because Brown v. Board of Education was
53 is what I said.
53, it's not.
That's
but
what
we did
I
not
said,
fully
Harry, for Christ's sake.
desegregate. Actually, you said 55. But we did not fully desegregate in Macon until the 1970s.
Sure.
We were in violation of the Constitution.
Well, but not in 1953.
Not in 1953.
So that's the point. So my point is, if I don't know how well I made it, is that there's a lot of, I guess, ups and downs in interpretation and what people say are right and wrong. So you have to be a little restrained about saying, well, this is absolutely right or absolutely wrong.
Well, there's a difference between being legal and being right. One, the Holocaust was legal. Every bit of what took place in Nazi Germany was legal at that point.
Well, it was in some...
In terms of what's legal versus illegal, the Constitution is very clear in the 14th Amendment that we have a right to due process.
Well, you could say in Cuba, we can say what's right and wrong in Cuba. However,
yes,
so what?
It's
totally legal.
A different context.
It's totally legal in Cuba to do whatever they do there. Or you could say in many countries they have all kinds of different arrangements. Also, there are different geographical entities in the U.S. So a thing might be right, it might be wrong in one place.
Again, at the federal level, we settled this in the 1830s, then again the Civil War. The federal Constitution trumps all state constitutions in the day.
Well,
we settled that, the nullification crisis, and then the Civil War.
If in fact the controversy can be so well established. So, and often these words are tricky. So you could say, well, okay, I have the right to vote, whatever, it's a free vote. Well, you might not if you've been in prison. So you've been in prison, you've lost your right to vote. Is that legal? And you're in New York, you can still vote. Why
There's
is it
nothing in the Constitution that says anything about the right to vote in that sense, about whether you can be a felon or not.
Well, the point, I would say, people have restricted the right to vote.
Yes.
So when people start saying you have the right to vote as a carte blanche, that's not necessarily the case.
That's not necessarily true.
So what I'm trying to get into, Harry, is the idea that when people assess different issues.
Yes.
Whatever we can pick one. I tried to pick one or two here. We could pick the border. We could also pick sending people back, whether is that legal, is that right? And so you're saying it's absolutely illegal.
I'm saying it's legal the way that it's being done.
Illegal.
It is not illegal to send people back. It is illegal to put them on a plane in violation of court orders and deny them a hearing before they are sent back. That's a violation of the due process
Didn't the Court
clause.
of Appeals, as my understanding is, they had the story about people being sent to El Salvador, and so they said we're going to punish the people that broke my law, and I think the district court person said I want all these people to be nipped. And then the Court of Appeals recently said, no, we're not going to do that.
Until the Supreme Court rules.
So that my point is, Harry, that when you start to say this or that, things go back and forth, and the ironclad view on something, it should be undertaken with caution. An ironclad view should be undertaken with caution. And the other thing that's going on is the assumption is, no matter what, the border is open. No matter what, the border is open. Once you're here, good luck on getting out of here. How can we get you out? Well, you can only do this. What does that take? It takes 400,000 judges. It takes 400,000 judges. It takes. We're going to hold a community. So what I'm saying is, the problem that was created, and I would assert, the most recent problem was created by the Democratic administrations. And a question to ask is, why was that done? And so the Republicans will say, rightly or wrongly, they wanted to change the makeup of the country. So we wanted a lot of poor people here that would want a redistribution of wealth. Would like to vote. I think it's a fair.
I think anyone who assumes that large-scale immigration from the global South is creating a Democratic voting base doesn't understand anything about the global South.
Well,
the global South is overwhelmingly socially conservative. They're fiscally more liberal, but that usually changes as they advance socioeconomic status. They are the prototypical conservative voter in a nutshell.
But that's in wherever they are. But once they're here, just to say this, and it depends. I'm going to make that so it's very. One should be restrained about saying, well, this is the way it is. This is the way it is. Once people are here, their viewpoints change, and it depends on their circumstances. And to go back with what I was saying, Harry, this is what the Republicans would say. I'm not saying if it was true or not. But that would be what they would make the case. And
I'm saying that case is fundamentally flawed, inaccurate, and doesn't represent an accurate view of the world.
Maybe yes and maybe no. So it's a dispute.
And I don't think the Democratic system is perfect either. Right. The Democrats have routinely failed to get real, concrete immigration reform passed. We need a strong border. We need to make sure that we know who's coming in. We need to make sure that we have accurate avenues to get people out who are violating our laws, who are a danger to our society.
If we probe the real reasons that are going on here as to what's happening, why the Republicans might think this or why the Democrats might think this, I have to say or assert the Democrats don't like the social structure in the country. They don't like the wealth distribution. In general, all generalizations are odious. I mean, it could be, okay, no, that's not. But I think I'd say that in general terms. And then I would say the Republicans in general terms are like Andy of Mayberry, 1950. The way the country looked and acted in 1950 is something that they would like to return to. And if you have, 29, all kinds of people speaking different languages,
I'm glad to know we want to return to a Democratic administration under the New Deal.
What's that?
I said I'm glad we'd love to return to a Democratic administration under the New Deal.
Yeah, that's what you would like?
And I'm saying, if you said Republicans want to go back to 1950 America, that's Truman administration.
Eisenhower, not there was many blowbacks. If you're saying
Eisenhower wins in 52.
What's that?
Eisenhower wins in 52.
That's right.
50 is still Truman.
All right. Well, so you're going to parse that out between 52 and
all's fair in love and war. So.
Well, okay. I'm not sure this is war, Harry. I'm not sure it's war.
Politics.
That's pseudo war. Yeah.
And war is just politics.
So just in looking at some of the issues here, I don't know how well I got this point across, but there are some policies that many people would like that are being touted by President Trump. Many people. and I think there are sociological reasons why they like those policies. And contrary-wise, there are reasons that people dislike it on the other side. And in general, the way these debates and arguments go down, I guess you'd say, I'm going to quote whatever I quote. This is, as you did, 10 or 15 bad things general bad words. This is what's going on. It's unconstitutional. It's against the American ethos. Or it's against our whole nation. And how can we possibly behave this way and this and that? Or, reasons like that. But what I want to say is the circumstances of the world require I'd say an unbiased examination. And not being swayed.
Let me present an unbiased view, an objective answer as to why these policies are wrong. The framers laid out very clearly in the Constitution a process to protect this country from demagoguery. There's nothing more the founders feared than the power of the mob.
Well, they feared a lot of things.
They feared, but particularly the power of the mob. That's why, and they said that
they also
direct
kings.
voting.
They didn't like kings. They didn't like
kings.
They didn't like aristocrats.
They didn't like direct enfranchisement.
They liked slaves. I mean, a lot
they
of things.
did. I'm not saying
they like slaves.
But I'm not saying the founders are perfect. But I'm saying is if you look at the way the Constitution is laid out, this is something that Republicans and Democrats, conservative liberals have all agreed on historically in this country, that the Constitution lays out a pathway for the rule of law, and they set up a system to prevent the whims of the people, whichever the whims were, whether it be reactionary or whether it be radical, that they had to subsume the whims of the people into the process of the legal system. The Constitution clearly lays out a process through which certain people, in this case all inhabitants of the country, have certain rights. Right? The 14th Amendment says
that citizens, Indians.
No, actually the Constitution does not apply to just citizens. It applies to all inhabitants of the United States. The moment you enter the United States and any territory that is owned by the United States, you are subject to the laws of the Constitution. And the beneficiaries of its protections.
So what you're saying is that everyone that's an inhabitant has to obey the laws.
Yes.
And so if people are inhabitants and they've broken the law by crossing the border,
except that it is not a criminal offense.
Says who?
Says the federal judiciary.
No, they may say it.
It's not in the Constitution, but it's the federal code. The federal code, which is the separate legal body that is outside the Constitution, says that illegal immigration is if you are inside the country and you are found to be here illegally, that is a civil violation. Now, if you get caught crossing the border, that is an illegal act. That is criminal. And then you're automatically deported.
So
once you're in the country, which is the question that we're actually asking here, is the people who are here. Let me finish, if possible, here. Right? The people who are here are subject to the laws of the Constitution and the protections of the Constitution. That means they have a right to due process. They have a right to a jury of their peers to be heard. And so
peers is a big word.
Well,
so does that mean you're people of your same?
I'm not here to discuss the makeup of juries. I'm not. Remember, this is unbiased. I'm not talking about who should be here and who's not. What's the law, right? So they are entitled to a hearing in front of a judge and potentially a jury of their peers, right? That means that there is a legal process through which someone is accused of being here illegally that must be proven in a court of law, at which point they can then be legally removed. So that's the legal process. The problem that we have with places like Sept and the like is that people are being picked up off the streets, detained, not given access to legal resources or defenses, and not being granted hearings and sent out of the country. If they were detained, properly informed their rights, given a hearing, and put in the queue, then I would have no problem.
Well, do you think you mentioned legal protection? Do you think they should have lawyers? So
for civil offenses, they are not required to have lawyers. The Constitution does not require lawyers. This is actually, I think they should be required to have lawyers because you have children who oftentimes don't speak English as their first language, forced to defend themselves in court. There are not even enough translators in this system to properly translate. And to me, now we're out of the unbiased. This is firmly biased in my own personal opinion. I think it's a gross miscarriage of justice that children are forced to defend themselves in a language that is not their first, in front of a judge to see whether they can stay or not.
Is that all right? Let's.
But that's the law. Okay. That's the legal system.
Well, all right. We're going to have to end this conversation, but it's not without substantial merit to have this interchange. And so, Harry, I hope you stick with your guns and
Always.
possibly learn something as you get older. But I hope I learn something too as I get older. So I hope we both do. Okay, all right. Thanks for being here.
Of course.
Thanks, Harry. Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you.